Steve Bannon joins us in London. My friend, how are you?
Well, first off, I'm the hottest get right now because I'm the hottest get in the world. How does Sean Hannay's production team track me down in the middle of London?
Well, wait a minute.
How do you do this?
I'm live in studio.
I'm live in studio. I'm the biggest get. I'm the biggest get in the world right now. Hold it, just saying.
Yeah, you are.
But your production team, how do they track me down in the middle of London?
Maybe it was just meant to be because we booked you on this program last night.
Serendipity.
It was great to see you last night. You have one of the more fascinating brains of anybody I've ever gotten to know. And I know people view you as dark. I just view you as smart and strategic and tactical, which is very different. The way we would want anybody, if you're going to battle somebody or fight a war or be it information war or whatever. All right, let's start with the heroes.
We're at war.
It's a culture.
And by the way, you said
the soul of America.
The one thing I'm going to disagree with you, and I know you guys have taken this to the next level and explained to the American people. It's not the deep state anymore. It's the in-your-face state. They are in your face. Look at this arrogance today. They are in your face every day, right? And they don't even try to hide it anymore. This is what you've done on your radio and TV is going to lead, I keep saying this, to a new church commission. We're going to have a church commission in about 6 months to a year that's going to go through after special prosecutors and after Crossfire Hurricane, after everybody goes through it, right? They're going to have a commission like they had back in the early 70s to look at the CIA, to look at the FBI, to look at the counterterrorism, to look at all of this, because it is out of control.
It's sort of like Greg Jarrett's book, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. That kind of sums it all up. I mean, look, we're going to have you for the hour because I just can't race through all of this with you. But when you get to the heart of it, what we have is a woman that was running for president that was guilty of numerous felonies, guilty of the clearest case of obstruction we've ever had, that we had, you can call them deep state actors, in-your-face actors if you prefer, that literally they managed her case, wrote an exoneration before investigation. They allowed her to
had to clear up the file, just like bureaucrats. In mid-July, had to clear up the file before they start the new file, right? Had to clear it up.
100 million to one, Strzok said that she should be elected, although he wasn't favoring one candidate after another. But then it was an effort that it went so far as she gets away with things no American would get away with, and then they frame Donald Trump. They bring up a phony Russia collusion narrative. They even use lies to FISA judges to spy on Americans. Here's my take. If we don't fix this, Steve Bannon, we lose the United States. That's how profound this is to me.
If you're not a fan of Donald Trump or you did not vote for Donald Trump, but you love your country, this is a important moment in American history because what happened is they tried to nullify a presidential election. They've tried to nullify a presidential election. If we let this happen, and I call on all the patriots out there that are not Trump supporters, right? They've got to start paying attention to this. Just look at the facts and look at the details. Look at this hearing today. The American people have to come together and say, hey, we can't continue down this path. There's an apparatus that is built up. And by the way, around both political parties have allowed it to happen. The permanent political class allowed this to be created over the last 30 or 40 years. And it is now out of control. And for the good of the country, Sean, I think we've got to come together and say, hey, you can't nullify. By the way, that's what I keep saying. This November, I have no problem with this being the first Trump reelect in November 6th, right? His reelect, it's up or down vote on the Trump program. Let's have a fair election, right? But you can't nullify a presidential election, and that's what they tried to do.
Let me go. Your name was brought up in the hearing. We have the audio of this. Let's play the audio. Some Democrats want you to go now before the joint committees, and here's what went down earlier today.
A point of order, Mr. Chairman. Will the committee also consider contempt for Mr. Bannon, who refused to answer Mr. Gowdy's questions when he was actually under subpoena?
That is not a proper point of order in this here. Parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Gowdy, do you remember
Parliamentary inquiry. The time is controlled by the gentleman from Parliamentary inquiry. A parliamentary inquiry is not in order when the gentleman from South Carolina controls.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I have a Rule 11 motion, Mr. Chairman. Clause 2. I move to subpoena Steve Bannon. Mr. Bannon was a witness in the House Intelligence Committee investigation. He was under subpoena. He refused to answer questions by Mr. Gowdy.
The gentleman is not recogned. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr.
Chairman,
Cummings,
a motion is always in order. A motion is alwaes in order, Mr. Chairman. It's Rule 11, Clause 2.
I will yield to Ms. Swalwell. for 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman, I move to subpoena Steve Bannon. In our House intelligence investigation, he was under subpoena. He refused a number of times to answer questions of Mr. Gowdy. Mr. Gowdy appears to have a sincere interest in getting to the bottom of what happened, and so I move under Rule 11 to bring Mr. Bannon to this committee. Also, Mr. Chairman is in receipt of Devin Nunes's letter to our committee recommending that the Judiciary Committee continue on the House Intelligence Committee's investigation into Russia and recommended witnesses. So I move now for consideration for Mr. Bannon to be subpoenaed. And if he refuses, for contempt proceedings to occur.
Okay, yeah, let's start with the contempt hearings for Lisa Page. All right, Mr. Bannon, they want you to come down. You've already talked to a few people as it relates. You've been to Mueller's office.
I went to Mueller, I think, 2 or 3 days. It's been publicly reported. I think it was 25 or 30 hours. You got to remember, there's two different kind of things that went on. The president's lawyers, and this is how much Trump's cooperated. The president's lawyers, Ty Cobb and John Dowd said the other day, the New York Times, it was a mistake, but what they talked to the president says, let's fully cooperate and give him everything. Over 1 million pages of documents.
1.4 million.
1.4 million pages of documents and access to everybody in the White House for all questions. They basically essentially waived executive privilege.
General counsel actually testified, Don McGahn.
The White House counsel, the chief of staff, Hope Hicks, Sean Spicer, Reince Priebus, myself, all of us. And we were told no executive privilege, go up there and talk about everything. So that was, this was the strategy at the time. They're now, I think, with Emmett Flood and new counsel, Rudy, starting to think through. There's this controversy about General Kelly, what's going to happen there. But they've been more than cooperative. I mean, $1.4 million. And have taken this, and I never said not cooperative, Mueller. It was that there's a process that's been set up under Reagan. There's a process set up under Bush, a process set up under Clinton of how you deal with this. That's what Don McGahn basically kept on about what's happening on Capitol Hill, and all I was doing was responding to what the White House guidance.
Well, we'll see what happens here. It's just, yeah, you're right. You're the biggest get, and we had you booked ahead of time. What was it like to sit in front of? Well, I've been very critical of the special counsel, 13 partisan Democrats, no Republicans, and you got a guy like Andrew Weissman, and I've been through his record. Tens of thousands of Americans lost their jobs because of him and the Anderson accounting investigation going back to Enron. And we had 9-0 Supreme Court overturn against him. We had 4 Merrill executives in jail for a year, and that was overturned by the Fifth Circuit. We've had 2 judges excoriate Andrew Weissman for withholding exculpatory evidence. Why would any investigation be considered fair, balanced, and objective if somebody with that track record is, as the New York Times calls him, the pit bull of Robert Mueller?
Look, at the White House, like I said, they waived executive privilege. White House counsel Don McGahn, right, who, by the way, in White House counsel in Nixon's White House was John Dean, just to bring a name up. And all I'm saying is that's position because it does not have attorney-client privilege with the president. White House counsel went up, chief of staff went up, I went up, I prepped. Because you got to take it seriously.
What's that like?
Well, you sit there I sat there for a month in advance, and I realized, I think the president has treated this with the level of gravitas, right, that he should have. And he told people, hey, listen to what these guys say. They waived executive privilege. I got great counsel. We went up there. I was a witness of fact. But I got to tell you, you got to prepare, and it's a long and grueling thing. But I thought at the time it was professional in the fact that they go through everything. Now, I can't get into the specifics, but let me tell you, it's as close to a proctology exam as you're ever going to get. So
here's the problem. There has been no evidence, in spite of media hysteria about Trump-Russia collusion. The most exculpatory bit of evidence actually came from James Comey in James Comey's notes when the president, and he took these notes, said to James Comey, I didn't do anything with Russia, but if there's anybody around me that did, you need to get to the bottom of it. That does not sound like anybody that is obstructing justice. Of course the Russians wanted to impact our elections. Devin Nunes warned about that in 2014. By the way, Barack Obama spent taxpayer money to try and unseat Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel. But there really was collusion with Russia in this sense. Didn't Hillary pay for that phony dossier with funneled money through Perkins Coie that hired GPS, Fusion GPS, that hired a foreign national, Christopher Steele, that used Russian sources?
Look, the Democratic Party and the progressive left is just right now embracing the totality of their defeat with the Supreme Court nomination of Judge Kavanaugh, and understanding that 140 federal judges are going to come, and Donald Trump is going to be in the life of the progressive left 30 or 40 years from now, as I said on your show last night. He is all the progressive left, and they're going through a meltdown right now. Okay, here's why. Hillary Clinton ran the single worst campaign in American presidential history. And by the way, the mainstream media propped her up all the way until 2:30 in the morning on November 9th when the AP said they had lost. The Morning Joe crowd, the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN. It was the greatest campaign in history. Robbie Mook and these guys were all geniuses. We were the islands of misfit toys. Donald Trump was a total barbarian.
Let me take a break. And he won.
And he won. And by the way, they can't embrace that.
I want to. There's so much.
They have to own this defeat.
So here's my take. I'll tell you what. We'll take a break. Steve Bannon has agreed to be with us for the full hour. We're going to have also a full hour examination of Strzok's explosive testimony today, and it's the beatdown more by Goodlatte and Trey Gowdy and others as we continue. All right, as we continue the Sean Hannity Show, we are in London today, and Steve Bannon is with us. He's agreed to stay for the full hour. Let me talk a little bit, get a headline, and we'll go into more detail in the next half hour about the president demanding that NATO step up and pay their fair share. The United States, I went through all these numbers earlier in the program and last night. We're paying over 70% of the bill. And meanwhile, Germany's Merkel is now signing billions and billions of dollars in energy deals, basically giving Vladimir Putin, the hostile regime of Russia, control over the life source of their economy, which is stupid and counterproductive.
If you look at that breakfast meeting with Stoltenberg, the mainstream media melted down. Just watch it. It's a businessman he's very
Secretary General of NATO.
Of NATO, and Trump is being a businessman, very pragmatic, very judicious, very prudent, and he's saying, hey, how can we have this problem with guys not paying 2% when you just did an energy deal that gave them 70% control of the energy? And someone says, well, we trade with them. And Trump very plain goes, this is not trade. It's energy. And once you have energy, you have control, right? And so, the German thing has to be addressed. I think he's done a terrific job. He has made this alliance stronger and more. It's not a protectorate, as I said on your show last night. It's an alliance, and Donald Trump has made this alliance better.
All right, and we're going to pick it up there when we get back. Well, more at Steve Bannon, then Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett, as we continue from London.
Listen to this show one time, and you're Hannitized. Sean Hannity is back on the radio.
Many countries owe us a tremendous amount of money from many years back, where they're delinquent, as far as I'm concerned, because the United States has had to pay for them. So if you go back 10 or 20 years, you'll just add it all up. It's massive amounts of money is owed. Germany is just paying a little bit over 1%, whereas the United States, in actual numbers, is paying 4.2% of a much larger GDP. So I think that's inappropriate also. We're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting everybody, and yet we're paying a lot of money to protect. Now, this has been going on for decades. This has been brought up by other presidents, but other presidents never did anything about it because I don't think they understood it or they just didn't want to get involved. But I have to bring it up because I think it's very unfair to our country. It's very unfair to our taxpayer. And I think that these countries have to step it up, not over a 10-year period. They have to step it up immediately. I think it's very sad when Germany makes a massive oil and gas deal with Russia, where you're supposed to be guarding against Russia, and Germany goes out and pays billions and billions of dollars a year to Russia. So we're protecting Germany, we're protecting France, we're protecting all of these countries. And then numerous of the countries go out and make a pipeline deal with Russia where they're paying billions of dollars into the coffers of Russia. So we're supposed to protect you against Russia, but they're paying billions of dollars to Russia, and I think that's very inappropriate. And the former chancellor of Germany is the head of the pipeline company that's supplying the gas. Ultimately, Germany will have almost 70% of their country controlled by Russia with natural gas. So you tell me, is that appropriate? I mean, I've been complaining about this from the time I got in. It should have never been allowed to have happened. But Germany is totally controlled by Russia because they were getting from 60 to 70% of their energy from Russia and a new pipeline. And you tell me if that's appropriate, because I think it's not. And I think it's a very bad thing for NATO, and I don't think it should have happened.
We are going to discuss many important issues at the summit. Among them is defense spending. And we all agree that we have to do more. I agree with you that we have to make sure that allies are investing more. The good news is that allies have started to invest more in defense. After years of cutting defense budgets, they have started to add billions to the defense budgets. And last year was the biggest increase in defense spending across Europe and Canada in a generation.
Why was that last year?
It's also because of your leadership, because your clear message.
That was the Secretary General, the last comment you heard of NATO backing up President Trump, and the only reason they are paying more is because President Trump is demanding that they pay more. And by the way, the budget is significant. We're talking about NATO's massive budget. It's about $1 trillion. Now, the president is asking Europe and our allies to pay their fair share. Right now, the United States, this is your money, your family's money, your taxpayer dollars. We are paying over $700 billion a year of that $1 trillion budget. We're paying almost all of it, over 70% of it. And by the way, the next highest contributor is the United Kingdom. That's $61.5 billion. Germany making billion-dollar deals, which is, you have the former chancellor of Germany now profiting with these deals with Russia, where Germany will become 70% dependent, the lifeblood of their economy, on Russian energy, which is so counterproductive to what the entire mission of NATO was and is supposed to be about today. That comes into play. Germany, $51 billion. Canada, $21 billion, and Belgium, only $5 billion, where NATO is headquartered. And the United States is now, we're paying 70% of the bill. If you break it down in terms of a percentage, remember they had a goal of 2% of GDP of all allying nations. Well, it turns out that there's only 4 that actually reach that 2% number. And the United States pays 3.57% of our massive GDP. And then Greece, 2.36%. The United Kingdom, 2.12%. Estonia, 2.08%. And Poland, by the way, 1.99%. So they're paying the 2%. But they're not willing to make any energy deals with Vladimir Putin and put the lifeblood of their economy into his hands. Steve Bannon, this is just wrong.
If you look at all the meltdown on CNN, MSNBC, The Joe Scarborough Show, David Ignatius, Richard Haas, all of these guys that melted down over the last 48 hours, not one number or statistic comes out. It's on your show last night, your opening monologue. You walk the American people through more details than everybody else wants to have happy talk. President Trump is trying to make NATO work. You heard the Secretary General say the biggest increase we've ever had was last year because of your leadership to President Trump. President Trump has focused on this from day one. And here's what happened that was important yesterday. President Trump in the morning said, hey, you need to hit the 2%, okay? You need to hit the 2%, and you can't wait till 2024. It needs to be today. And by the way, if you don't hit the 2%, it should be in arrears. I know you don't want to hear that, but this is why it's happened, because every year we're up at 3.5%. We're spending, by the way, we're going to spend more and more and more. President Trump, I think, has increased defense spending something like 10 or 12% already. More importantly, it was President Donald Trump that forced this readiness initiative that NATO had the afternoon meetings, supposed to be the long, boring meetings. He came out of those meetings, and what did he say? Hey, you know what? I think it ought to be 4%. This is because Donald Trump, and this is what galls me about the mainstream media attacking him about being isolationist. In his comments, he said other presidents knew this, but they either didn't know the details or didn't want to force it. He knows the details like any businessman. He's done his due diligence. He knows these numbers better than anybody. And he sits there and goes, hey, to save this alliance and make it an alliance, not a protectorate. It's not the United States' responsibility. It's not the deplorables. It's on their shoulders as taxpayers, and their kids are the ones. The 38,000 combat troops in Germany are the sons and daughters of the deplorables. The people in the Hindu Kush in Afghanistan, the deplorables. In the South China Sea on those Navy vessels, the deplorables. Up at the 38th parallel, it's the deplorables. It's on their shoulders to bear the taxes and then to have their kids do it. No, Donald Trump, as America First, is not isolationist. He's sitting there, knows the details, and said, guys, here's what we need to do. You need to step up for 2%. You did it before I got here, said it, but you've been just meandering. It can't be 10 years now. It's got to be today. Then he goes into the readiness. The German, I said in your show last night, German Air Force, 128 combat fighters, 7 are ready for combat duty. There's a report the other day that Germany can actually field their entire thing as a brigade of combat troops. Okay? What he's saying is it can't go on like this. You have to be serious. If you're serious about your defense, I'm serious. The United States, his budget put forward is over $700 billion. Okay, the American people and the deplorables have shown their good faith, and Donald Trump, more than any president, and I say even including President Reagan, has been engaged in the nitty-gritty, under-the-hood, non-sexy stuff of NATO to make this work. And it galls me when the mainstream media and even some Republicans grandstand with all this highfalutin happy talk. Okay, you want to see American values? You're seeing it in the grit and determination of Donald Trump to get to a solution on this. Okay, and to tell these nations, here's what has to happen. We have to have readiness. We have to have equipment. We have to have interoperability. We have to be an alliance. Okay?
The president, it's amazing because I'm looking at the comments of John Kerry, Donald Trump's disgraceful NATO speech, and Ben Rhodes. You know, these are the same guys that dropped $150 billion in cash and other currency on the tarmac for the mullahs in Iran. I don't need lectures from them about American national security. The president today, interestingly, said, well, yeah, Vladimir Putin is looking out for Russia. I am looking out for the United States. I'm a statistics guy, and I'm a believer that I can't give statistics once. You have to repeat them or people don't remember. But we now have a report today of food stamp usage in the United States has dropped below 40 million for the first time in 8 years. Manufacturing jobs are at the highest level in 10 years. Donald Trump's president. 14 states, record low unemployment. Record low unemployment for women, Hispanic Americans, and African Americans. All of that is happening. Now,
this is called economic nationalism.
Right.
This is what economic nationalism is. It's bringing manufacturing jobs back. His immigration.
Obama said we can't bring them back. He said we can't get those jobs back. They're coming back.
The whole, by the way, the entire Wall Street and all the political elites said that. They said the inexorable rise of China. Those manufacturing jobs were gone and never coming back. Donald Trump is proving the manufacturing jobs are coming back, the economy's coming back, and here's the other thing: is immigration policies. Historically low black unemployment, and now the lowest 7 or 8 quarters in history, 7 have happened on Donald Trump's watch of Hispanic. They're black and Hispanic working class, and I continue to say this, and I don't care if it drives the progressives nuts. Martin Luther King would be proud of the economic policies Donald Trump has put in to look after the black and Hispanic working class. The wages are starting to increase. Unemployment's at all-time low. They are the direct beneficiaries of Donald Trump's policies.
And
that's what he looks out for working people in this country like nobody has.
The beauty of what has happened here in Europe, what happened in Brussels yesterday, to me is, and it's the most underreported asset that the United States of America has, and it's really simple. We have more natural gas. We have more oil. We have more coal. We have more energy. We have the ability to create more wealth, more prosperity, more high-paying career jobs. People in North Dakota that are driving trucks will be trained to drive a truck. That I know because we had a program to put companies and people that need jobs together. They literally go from $30,000, $40,000 a year to $100,000, $120,000 a year. Now that the president has opened up ANWR, now that he's building the pipelines, now that he's removing burdensome regulation, now that he's saved the coal industry, not Joe Manchin or Obama in West Virginia, now that he's doing all these things, this is the biggest opportunity for the forgotten man and woman in this country to accumulate wealth and happiness and prosperity than we've ever experienced. And it's sitting there, and he's basically saying to Merkel, why are you giving these deals to Putin, who is a bad actor, when you could get it from us, the United States?
Our energy dominance, which his policy was not energy independence, it's energy dominance, full spectrum dominance, okay? And you can actually export the value creation and wealth to other nations of the world. When he went last August to Poland and laid out, he said the defense of Western civilization is the central, concept of our time. And he talked about right then, he was in Putin's face about gas then. And he said he offered up liquefied natural gas from the United States of America.
If I'm Vladimir Putin, I'd be shaking in my boots in the lead up to the summit. I got to ask you the most important question. I can't believe the hour flies by. 2018, to me, is the single most important midterm election in our lifetime.
It's not a midterm. This is a presidential reelect. Okay, they had the nullification project, and they're going to get it on November 6th. This is an up or down vote. Donald Trump's on the ticket across the board, okay? In every congressional district and every Senate race, it's about Trump's
What if your
plan.
congressman that is a Republican or your senator is a rhino?
You got to put it aside.
Suck it up.
Suck it up. You know what? This is a vote about President Trump and the whole package: economics, national security, immigration, deconstruction, administrative state. You look across the board. The judges. You take the whole package. And by the way, put this to the country and go out to the country and show me who they got. They got Elizabeth Warren. They got Joe Biden. They got Cory Booker. Who are they going to bring? Kamala Harris, Kristen Gillibrand. Okay,
you know what their agenda is? Their agenda is to impeach Trump, but don't say it. Their agenda is open borders, but don't say it. Their agenda is keep Obamacare, and they're even saying it. They want their crumbs back, and they don't want Donald Trump making Supreme Court appointments. There's not one positive piece of the agenda. Last word, we have 20 seconds.
The deplorables, this is in November 6th of 2018 is very simple. Deplorables, if you believe in this presidency, if you believe in this man, if you believe the direction he's taking the country and to take the world, you got to show up.
All right, Steve Bannon, great to see you in London. Thank you for joining us. One more minute with Steve Bannon. All right, Sean Hannity Show as we continue. We're in London. Trey Gowdy is on tonight. He's amazing. At the next hour, we're going to have Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett. We continue our final moments with Steve Bannon. Am I allowed to talk about this new project you're involved in? Well,
we're doing something.
By the way, I'm not impressed very easily. I'm really impressed with this.
It's top secret right now. We'll be announcing, and we're going to announce it on your show sometime in the near future.
Right.
Near future, we've got a project that I think is going to jack people up for 2018. This is all people have got to get focused. The left is triggered, and I tip my hat to them. They're getting people out. Okay, this is democracy.
Triggered by irrational hatred.
Irrational, but they understand now. Donald Trump's in their life for a long time. Yeah. Okay, he's in their life. You got to embrace this. He's in their lives for now 30 or 40 years.
Oh no,
because of what he's doing on the
It's a transformational presidency that's unfolding before our eyes. I just want to go back because there are going to be people that I am so disgusted with the Republican Party, with the exception of people like Cruz in the Senate and Rand Paul and
Mark Meadows and guys like that.
But the Freedom Caucus is it.
That's the posse.
Okay, but some people listening right now, they don't have those Freedom Caucus members, and you're saying, suck it up. This is too important.
Doesn't matter.
Because they want to impeach the president.
This is the reelect of Donald Trump. The reason they don't want to talk about it and won't use the impeachment word now, they've done the polling, and they know that is the way to galvanize the Republican Party and the Trump deplorables to turn out in massive numbers in November, and that's what we got to do. The opposition is working ground game all the time, and they're doing it smart. I tip my hat to them. We have to be tougher. We have to be better. The same way we won in 16, the same way we're going to win here. Ground game.
All right, Steve Bannon, looking forward to your new project. Great to see you in London.